Definitely, Bob doesn't need any introduction. Bob is very, very well known in our Agile community. And it is kind of a fan moment for me to be here with Bob and Janani. So, Bob, would you like to introduce yourself by the time I download the
Sure,
presentation and share?
sure. So let me turn my video on too. I think that'll help. Let me see if I can do that. There we go. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Bob Galen. I'm an Agile coach. What do I say about me? I've been doing this for a little while. I started out as a software developer, started doing leadership. I was an early practitioner of Scrum. Probably in the late 90s, as a director of an engineering organization, we were playing around with Scrum very early on in its definition. And I was a mad scientist leader, so I experimented on my teams with Scrum, and that was fun. And then I started doing coaching and leadership. I've written a few books, and it's just a pleasure for me to be here. And I'm really just buying time for the for the download. So
No,
that,
download is done. Download is done. I'm
uh,
projecting. So,
are
and
you?
Bob, your recent book, The Badass Agile Coach. Oh my God, what a book it is!
Oh, thank you so much. I was torn for the title, so if anyone's offended by the B word in the title, I apologize to you. Uh, when I asked people what they thought about the title, about 50% in my network, 50% of the people sort of liked it, and then almost
Yeah,
50% of the people
just
didn't like it. They were offended.
second.
So
I'm
so
sharing
so are the
the link.
slides up
So
somewhere?
I
So I
should
can.
I should
Oh,
yes,
breaking.
yes, yes.
Okay. Should I see them?
It's
It would be helpful if I.
coming up
Oh, this is not
probably there is
working.
a slight network lag.
We're having a
Uh,
network lag. I'm
I
sorry.
did have the share option, and I'm actually using the share option. Are you able to see my screen? Not yet, right? Yes, yes, showing. Okay, let me share the.
I don't.
Not a problem. So or share Google Chrome. I just bear with few seconds. I am also trying to share now.
So we're live. So I think we're live.
Some
So
technical
if it's
glitches.
okay, let me start.
Yeah,
Tanmoy,
you're
let
live.
me
Yes,
let me start presenting, I guess, without slides. So if that's
yes, yes.
okay. So I'll try to do this. So hi everyone, I'm Bob Galen, and our topic today is I think it's everyone can be an agile coach, or we're going to just go with agile coaching. And and the topic is, I think everyone can be an agile coach. It's not just for agile coaching or coaches. So let me talk about some ideas around that. So the first idea is the agile coaching growth wheel is a model. If everyone's familiar with the agile coaching competency framework, and I'm going to do visuals with my hands, everyone, so if that's okay. So the agile coaching competency framework is something very often called the X-wing model. So it looks like an X-wing, and it has four primary competencies in it as agile coaches. It was created around 2010. Um, were innovated by Lisa Adkins and Michael Spade. And what they were trying to do is provide a frame for what is agile coaching. And 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 that framework had four primary stances or competencies. And Tamoy, you just wave your hand when you have slides. Otherwise, I'm going to keep just talking if that's okay. Do you have
Oh,
slides
okay,
up?
okay. You keep talking. Okay, okay. Sorry, sorry. No, no. Just trying. Still trying.
Okay. So the X-Wing model has four primary competencies, if you will. Think of a competency as a skill or a practice. The competencies were training or teaching, mentoring, facilitating, and then something called professional coaching. The professional coaching. So I'm going to go around and just real quickly define the four of those. Professional coaching, I sort of explain it by asking good questions and looking at your client and considering them to be, you know, able to solve their own problems. So you ask them questions to help them refine and define their solve their problems or find their own solutions. Teaching is just that. As a coach, I might teach a client, and when I use the term client, I'm really saying, from a that could be an individual that I'm coaching, or it could be a scrum team that I'm coaching, it could be a group of leaders that I'm coaching. So client to me is that interchangeable. Whoever we're coaching is the actual coach. So teaching the client, mentoring the client, showing them as opposed to maybe teaching them. And then facilitation is facilitating scrum events. So very often I think of scrum masters as having having coaching skills, and they would be operating in these stances. In the X-wing model, there's agile awareness or lean agile practices. So, you're an agile coach, so that's part of your agile coaching mindset. And then there's some areas of specialization like business domain, technology domain, transformational design domain, or enterprise domain. I've just verbally talked about the X-wing model. The real four triggers for me for being an effective coach is those four primary stances. Now, around 2016 or 17, some folks in the Agile community started working on something called the Agile Coaching Growth Wheel. And the growth wheel to me is an extension of the Agile Coaching Competency Framework. It's an evolutionary path, and not a direct evolutionary path because other people are working on it. Um, and in the slides, I talk about some things that the wheel adds to the to the X-wing model, to the Agile Coaching Competency Framework. So it made some changes in philosophy. One of those changes is it combined teaching and mentoring together, and it talks about that being guided learning, if that makes sense to everyone. So it combined those two stances together. It didn't change the nature or the scope of those stances at all. It just put them together. The other thing that it did is it put in the center of the wheel. So it changed the orientation to be sort of the X-wing with a cluster of ideas around it or competencies around it to a true wheel. And in the center of the wheel is something that was added that's self-mastery, if that resonates with everyone. And self-mastery, and that it's not that it was missing from the Agile Coaching Competency Framework. Oh my gosh, we have slides. Oh, this could be everyone. This could be like wonderful. So why don't we? Why don't I orient myself instead of me? So if you could go back, Tanmoy, if you could go back.
No, no, I am not doing the slide. So whoever is doing the slide,
There
Janani
you
is
go.
doing. I think
There
so.
you go. So whoever's doing the slides, thank you. So this is the Agile. This is a representation of the Agile Coaching Competency Framework. And then if you could go forward, please. This is a beautiful thing. This helps me, everyone. If you could go forward one slide, whoever is, there you go. So this is
Yes.
the growth wheel that I was talking about. One more slide, please. And this is a little bit of history, but then I think if you go one more, so this is where I was talking, everyone. So self-mastery is in the hub of the wheel, and I want to just amplify why it's important. And it's a new edition. It talks about, I don't know if any of you have ever encountered coaches, but there's a lot of agile coaches that they tell their teams or their clients what to do. Like you should reduce your work in progress limits and things like that. But then if you look at the coach's whip limit is very high themselves. So it's easy to tell people to do things. It's a little bit harder to actually behave that way yourself or to role model that. So the self mastery component, think of it as inside out coaching or walk your talk coaching or things that we need to care about so that we're a coach on the inside before we worry about being a coach on the outside, right? We worry about our inside landscape. So things to think about is ethics and self-awareness, emotional intelligence. One of the things one of the reasons I'm excited about the wheel is the continuous learning. So how can you tell people to coach them to be continuous learners if you're not curious and a continuous learner yourself? So that's a part of it. Mindfulness, being present when you're coaching, being fully present with your coaching is part of it. This is another one of my favorites is coachable. There's so many agile coaches that love to coach, But when I ask them, do you actually have a coach? And I'm kidding around everyone a little bit. They don't. And I'm like, well, how can you need to get a coach. And and not only to have one, but to be coachable. It's not default that you will be coachable. So to be mindful, to be coachable, to be curious about changing your own behavior. So self mastery is the first place if you're trying to be a better coach. You're trying to be a coach or be a better coach. No matter what your role or title is, that's a good place to look. Is inside. Think of it as inside out. If you could go to the next slide, please. Now, this is where I was talking about the stances change a little bit. So, guiding learning is that combination of teaching and mentoring. Facilitation is the same, professional coaching is the same as the X Wing model. But then it added two more, and I get excited about these as well. It added advising. So an agile coach can occasionally, just read my lips, occasionally provide advice to a client. They can stop asking questions and they can actually provide options and advice to the client in a consulting stance or an advising stance. And a lot of coaches looked at the X-Wing model because it didn't have consulting or advising. They said it didn't give me permission. Like they could they were reluctant to provide advice. Many coaches, it's like, no, if you have advice and if it serves the client's agenda, then provide that advice. Now, don't shove it down their throat, but provide that advice. The other stance that was added was leading, a leading stance. And in my view, and I get excited about that because I think coaches are leaders, maybe small L leaders, where they're leading. If you're coaching in a transformation, people are watching your behavior. Anyone who's coaching, whether you have that title or not, if you're leading a change, a transformation, people are watching how you're showing up. So you're leading by example, and you're walking your talk. And very occasionally, you need to lead the initiative. You need to be out front, potentially with the leaders. And so having that mindset of, oh, I'm not just coaching from behind, I'm coaching from the front. Maybe that's a great way to think about it. So we're changing our position. So the wheel added what I think of as some nimbleness and some flexibility to the stances, again, in service to your client. I've talked to leaders very often. The advising stance is good if you're coaching up. If any of you have ever coached up, I've talked to a lot of leaders who have interacted with agile coaches, and they're like, Bob, we had to fire them. I'm kidding a little bit here, everyone. And they say we fired them because they kept asking us questions. They never helped us. They would I would need help, and they would ask me a question, and then and they would ask me another question and another question, and I'm like, I'm not paying them to ask me questions. I'm paying them to occasionally help me. And that's a joke, but it's not. It's really those coaches were not serving their client's agenda. So one of the things that a more masterful coach gets adept at is dancing across the stances. Does that make sense to everyone? I like the metaphor where we dance around the stances. You don't stay in one. You sense what you're doing with the client, and then you may shift stances, and that's perfectly normal and very powerful part of it. All right, let's go to the next slide quickly. So these areas map to the X-Wing model as well. Agile Lean Practitioner was there, service orientation, servant-oriented mindset, and then transforming. And I just want to get out of here. If you could skip to the next slide. And then finally, the final exciting part about the wheel, and I'm almost done with this meta. I didn't really set the agenda. I don't want to go back, but the agenda is I wanted to go through the wheel. I want to talk about coaching mindset. I want to talk about a coaching arc, and then we're going to practice a little bit if it works out that we can. But we're going to do a little bit of practice at the end, and we may create some interaction or try to create some interaction. But the other thing that the wheel did that the X-Wing model didn't do is it provides advice as to what does your maturation process look like as you grow as a coach in each competency. So what the wheel tries to do within each competency area, let's take facilitating, and it'll tell you what a beginning facilitator looks like as far as tactics and skills and abilities. And then it'll show you what an advanced beginner. So it has 5 levels of maturity within each competency. It's not dictating it to you. It's providing you guidance as to what good looks like and how do you mature yourself. The X-wing model never really helped people figure out how do I grow, and that's why it's called the Agile Coaching Growth Wheel. It's helping us to grow. It's providing guidance, not in a heavy-handed way, but in a this is what good might look like at this level, and then this is what good might look like at this level. These are things that you can aspire to, and I think it's wonderful guidance to grow a coach. I do want to suggest something here really quickly. A lot of folks think that they want to grow the wheel like equally. I need to become, let's say, a practitioner or a guide at every level of the wheel. And I would argue that that may not be the right way to grow yourself. So, for example, if I'm doing a lot of executive coaching, I may want to mature my advising and leading and professional coaching stance. Does that make sense to everyone? I may want to focus in those areas because of the coaching role that I have. Let's say I'm coaching at a team level. Well, I might want to become fairly strong at the Agile lean. I want to be strong at that foundation. And obviously, self mastery is always something I'm developing. But the Agile lean practitioner, and maybe I lean into facilitation. I just lost the slides again. Um, I lean into facilitation because from a team level, that's where I need to be strong with my teams. Can everyone hear? Did everyone lose the slides? Can you hear me? You can hear me. Tamor, are you working
Yes,
on it?
we can hear you. Yes, the slides are lost. I'm doing some backstage
All
conversation
right,
to see
that's
how to
that's
get
fine.
back the
We
slides.
got there. So everyone, that's the wheel. And it's from an agile coaching perspective, having that, or even just from a coaching conversation perspective, having that as a baseline in your thinking and having those different individual stances. The other thing we need to do when I say dance with the client or dance across the stances, we need to sense what the client needs from us. So if they need teaching, we would move into teaching. If we're not sure where to go, we might move into professional coaching and ask some questions. If a client is struggling with a particular technique, maybe I show it to them, maybe I mentor it to them. Do you see what I'm talking about dancing in the stances? I'm sensing and responding to the needs of the client in real time according to their agenda and to our coaching goals. All right. I want to switch
It's
gears and
coming
talk.
up. It is coming up. Yes, Bob. Can I ask? Can I share something? Janan is sharing. So what I do, I actually explicitly come out of the hat. So when I'm doing the coaching, mentoring with my clients and leaders, sometimes they ask for advice, and I say I am taking off my coaching hat and putting my mentoring hat now. And sometimes they say it is useful to them because they now know that I am changing the stance to advising role.
I did a talk earlier this week, Tim, to a group. I forget which. I've done several talks this week, but someone was talking about do you share with the client your switches or do you just switch? And I don't think there's any hard rule,
There's
but
no
I
hard rule, yeah, but
but I do what you do quite often. Probably
I do that, yeah.
80% of the time, I actually don't surprise them. Like, why is he changing direction? Sometimes I can say, if you don't,
You're right because I'm also bounded by ICF ethics, right? As an ICF member, so when I'm not doing coaching, I'm coming out of the boundary so I can do mentoring, and then I'm going
yeah,
back to the boundary and doing
yeah.
coaching again.
The majority of the time, not only that, I'll explain the wheel to a client very lightly. It's actually not the wheel. I'll explain what agile coaching is and what it isn't during my first session with a client, and I'll talk lightly about the stances. And what I'm doing is sort of giving them an idea of the scope and the responsibilities and the part I play and the part they play. So I'm trying to set expectations. And then that helps me later on when I'm doing stance switches. And I do like to acknowledge it, just to be clear and to be transparent with the client. I think it creates a smoother conversation
Yes,
when I'm
yes.
doing.
I do get that same feedback that it lands much well when I'm making it explicit.
If whoever's driving the slides, if you could move
Slides
to
are back. Okay,
yes,
yeah.
if you could move to slide 12, please. There's a picture of Kobe Bryant there, who's a basketball player in the U.S. for folks. But it's slide 12. There we go. So now what I want to do is I want to talk. We talked about the wheel. Now I want to talk about mindset and then I'm going to talk about a coaching conversation arc, and then before we practice. So there's really three chunks to this talk. And we could be talking about coaching for a day or two. So this is really a sampler sort. I like this notion from him. It's the magic within each of us that gives us the potential to inspire the world. I think of coaches as being that magic to inspire or engage their clients. As we become more artful, more magic can happen between in the synergy between us and the dance between us and the client. Most of it's coming from within the client, but we're that trigger, we're the igniter for that. So I want you to look at coaching, whether you are a coach. Like this workshop, I think managers should be coaches. One of the things I didn't do in the beginning is set this up. When I wrote the book, one of the mistakes I made is I put agile coaching in the title. So I said extraordinary badass agile coaching, and that almost implies that only agile coaches should read the book. I actually think that managers and leaders would get value from the book. I think that product owners would get value from reading the book. I'm not trying to turn them into coaches. What I'm saying is that team members could get value from the book, because I think all of us should improve our coaching skills, if that makes sense to everyone. The ability to communicate, the ability to listen, the ability to dance with your peers, right? To look at their perspective, to increase our empathy. There's a lot of attributes of coaching that will make you a better whatever you are. And I wanted to set that up, and that's really why we're going through this. I don't want you to, oh, that's for them. If you're a scrum master, you to me you are a coach. Now it's the coaching competencies. I'm not changing your business card or your title, but I want you to look at those competencies and say, hey, can I grow in those areas? So let's look at coaching mindset. Next slide, please. So there's some prime directives I want you to think about. Putting on, I want everyone here to set up your coaching mindset. This is not an exhaustive list, but it's a useful list. So do no harm. Right? We don't want to leave bodies behind us. We don't want to leave folks in tears behind us, or in joy, in false joy and euphoria. We want to so do no harm. Assume positive intent. I wish I could influence people to tattoo a API on their on their wrist. The world doesn't have enough assumption of positive intent in our dialogues when we're coaching leaders. So many agile coaches, they coach leaders and they come back and they grumble, oh, they're pointy headed. They can't even spell agile. They'll never be agile, right? Well, that's a very negative way to be trying to coach those leaders. Assume positive intent. Meet them where they are. Hold their agenda. Help them discover their way. Help them focus on their objectives. So some prime directives around it. Next slide, please. This is I want all of you, whether you're an agile coach or not, when we're trying to influence change, meet people where they are, not where you want them to be. I want everyone to write that down. Right? If you're a change agent, don't meet people where you want them to be. I mean, it's nice to know where you want them to be, but meet them where they are. Now, if you don't, and don't assume that you understand where they are. Oh, I understand their challenges. I used to be a developer 22 years ago. No, you have no clue what it's like to develop now. Or I used to be a developer 2 years ago, or a designer, or an architect. You have no clue about this team. This team is unique. Each individual on that team is unique. Meet them as the unique individual they are. Meet them where they are. Try to build your empathy and understanding of where they are before, and then co-create maybe a future. So you meet them where they are, and sometimes you have to leave them there. And don't look at that as a negative event. Sometimes folks aren't ready to change, and that's okay. Does everyone know that you can't change people? Like I've done agile coaching for more than 20 years. I've never converted someone from waterfall to agile, not one time. They have to do that to themselves. They have to decide. Now I can set up the conditions for them to maybe consider it, and I can set up the conditions to help teach them what it is. I can do a lot, but we can't change people. They have to change themselves. So that's another part of this. Meet them with respect. And it's okay for folks to not be ready for agile. Like if anyone in the audience has ever said something, well, that's not agile, or you're not following the Scrum guide, that's really judgmental language. Don't do that. It's okay not to be Scrum, not to use. It's okay not to be agile. It's okay to use waterfall. Who are we to tell us, oh, waterfall is bad and agile is good? No, it may be working for them. So meet them with respect. All right, next slide, please. I can't tell you enough how important it is to walk in the shoes of whoever you're coaching. Quietly observe. There's too much assumptions. There's too much baggage around. It's really walk in the shoes, particularly if you're coaching leaders, if you're coaching up, if you're coaching out organizationally. Before you open your mouth and start providing some agile coaching advice, follow them around, build your empathy, do some empathy interviews to figure out what what are their challenges, what are their goals, what are their outcomes that they're looking for, right? And seek to understand them. Another part of this is building relationships. I think as a coach, you have to build a relationship with your client. They have to trust you. There's rapport. There's presence that you have to. So it's relationship building as well. Next slide, please. One of the final things I want to say from a mindset perspective, all of us have baggage. And in fact, experience is really great and really terrible all at the same time. So I have a lot of experience, and that's wonderful. But I also bring that experience to every coaching engagement, which is bias. And I think, oh, I've seen this before. I've actually seen this 100 times before. I know how to fix this client. No, I don't. I just have experience. I need to refresh my brain, drop my bias, and meet and observe this client where I am. That's part of my mindset, and not bring. And I've seen this on the part of Scrum Masters and all coaches. We we they struggle with sort of uniquely meeting their client, and they like to bring their experience. And I'm not discounting the experience, but it's only your experience, right? You have to figure out it may not apply to this client. And so don't apply it. Try to drop as much as you can. Anyone ever hear that term, that, sort of the wide-eyed curiosity of a child, the open-minded curiosity of a child, right? Where you're just trying to figure things out. I think as a coach, you want to bring that mind to it. Oh, I know. No, you don't know. Just watch and learn. Clean, empty your brain for this client, and then fill it up with information that you've observed from this client, and do that. Please, the next slide. So I think that's the end of the mindset slides. Oh, and walk your talk. I forgot about this one. The most important thing, it is so easy to move our mouths. And agile, whip limits. I wish it wasn't. I wish it was more difficult to talk. I really do. And so talking is easy. Oh, I talked to Jeff Sutherland, and Jeff Sutherland said this. And the Scrum guide says, you're just talking. So walking our talk is much more important as a coach than talking. In fact, I think it's your most powerful stance as a coach, as someone who's coaching, who's influencing, that people are paying attention not to what you say or how many letters are after your name, but they pay attention to what you do and what you do when the pressure's on. How do you behave? How do you show up? That speaks volumes about your character. That speaks volumes about your principles. You can say, oh, I'm a servant leader. Does your behavior each and every day serve your clients? Is that how you're showing up? And that will tell them more than I'm a servant leader on a PowerPoint slide. So that's the point of this slide. Next, so some mindset attributes. Next slide, please. The third thing I want to talk about is a coaching conversation framework. Think of this is a conversational framework. You could take coaching out and just use it as a good, solid conversation. So downward conversation, maybe a Scrum Master to a team. Sideways conversation, peer to peer, Scrum Master to Scrum Master, coach to coach. Upward conversation, coach talking to a leader in the organization. 360. So this conversation is just a way of dialoguing, effectively dialogue, and preparing ourselves for this conversation. Now, this context is about coaching, right? Agile coaching. But I think you can use this. Think of it as a crucial. If anyone's familiar with radical candor, that notion, that book, or crucial conversations, I think this complements all of those. So next slide, please. Oh, Tanmoy said something. I just noticed it. I'm not paying attention to the chat enough. But he said, "What you do under stress is the key." 100%, 110%. Everyone, it's in fact your behavior. So remember, I said walk your talk. Don't get too full of yourself if you're walking your talk when the going is easy. I mean, that's nice, but if you really want to measure your are you walking your talk, look at how you do it under when the pressure's on, whatever that means, because that's where you that's going to check your resilience, and that's going to check your commitment. So I 100% agree with that. Here's this coaching arc that I was talking about. I like chess metaphors, so I want you to think in terms of opening moves, thirds, if you will, opening moves, middle game, end game. So what are some things in an opening move? Ask permission. I learned a long time ago. I don't know who taught me this. I learned this not with coaching, but with feedback. Someone, decades ago, someone gave me a pearl of wisdom that said, before you give someone feedback, ask them if you can give them feedback. So, and I took that to heart, and I'm like that, and that's part one. That's the first part of it, and the second part, and you need to accept the no. Does that make sense to everyone? So you need to ask, and you need to be willing to accept if it's not the right time, and to set it up for another time. And I'm bringing that to coaching as well. So don't ever walk into someone and just start coaching them. That's one of the biggest mistakes. I'm here. We have 32 minutes and 16 seconds for me to change your mind and to turn you into to have an agile mindset, right? And we need to start right now. That's no, don't do. Even if you have that kind of pressure, you need to show up differently, calmly, present, get to know, establish relationship, etc. So ask permission, establish the goals. Whose goals are these? Are these the coach's goals? No, these are the client. It's the client's agenda. Discover the client's agenda, and help them discover their goals. What are the outcomes we're looking for? Set the stage. As Tamo and I were talking, maybe talking about introducing what agile coaching is and what it isn't, what I'm here to do and what I'm here not to do. I'm not here to replace your brain. I'm not here to tell you whatever it is. Listening. Listening, powerful listening is incredibly important, I think, in opening moves, because you're trying to figure out, what does the client need from me? Usually opening moves, I enter opening moves in coaching stance, if that helps everyone, because it's questions, and I'm listening and I'm sensing. So a very large percentage of the time, my opening move stance is professional coaching. But what I'm doing then is trying to figure out in middle game, when we get into the meat of the coaching, what stance does my client need me to show up in? And do I need to make a switch to something else to serve them? So I'm finding that out in opening moves. And I may switch stance in opening moves, and so direction finding is what I'm talking about there. Middle game is where you might be talking about options and brainstorming and strategies and you may ask some powerful questions to look under the surface. Oh, tell me more about that. Oh, drilling down. Tell me more about, let's understand more about that. Looking at root causes. Think clarification. Powerful listening is active and healthy in the middle game. And then the end game is closure. Again, it's an arc. Closure, ownership, action setting, agenda confirmation, setting up another session if you want to, scheduling that, confirming what you heard. Did I hear this right? Right, that could be happening in middle game, but that major sort of closure at the end. Another important thing in the end game is ask how you did, if that resonates with everyone. Like, look for feedback, not from like how was this coaching session for you? If I'm coaching Tanmoy, and then shut up. So there's a magical, I didn't share this earlier. There's something magical about asking questions. Everyone with me? There's another magical part. You ask a question and then you have to do something magical. You have to shut up and listen. Everyone, I don't mean that rudely, but you have to be quiet and listen. And sometimes you have to deal with silence and allow silence to do its work. So questions without effective listening are only half effective in my mind. So there's a partnership between those two when you're asking those questions. Next slide. I'm trying to manage time. So one of the hallmarks of professional coaching, everyone, is something called powerful questions. Um, and if you look on Amazon, there's actually a book, at least one book, that has powerful lists of powerful questions. And powerful questions are open-ended questions. They're trying to solicit thinking on the part of the client, and sort of establishing dialogue and transparency and understanding, and you're taking a journey together. But one of the problems that at least I've found early on with powerful questions, when I have 1,000 or 5,000 choices, it's really hard to pick the right one. So I would like pause. It's like I would hold a stop sign up to my client and say, "Hey, can you wait for 10 minutes while I pick the right next question for you?" I'm kidding a little bit, but it created a very fractured the number of choices. So what I like to recommend to folks who are beginning their coaching journey is I like this set of 7 questions. It's very simple. So think of them as a mini set of powerful questions from the coaching habit. And this is not an agile coaching. It's more of a leadership conversational habit. What's on your mind? Wonderful opening moves question. Everyone with me? You could put it into the middle game, but it's a wonderful way to open. And what else? I was talking about drilling down, peeling the onion, drilling down a little bit. And what else? Wonderful in the opening moves, wonderful in the middle game, wonderful everywhere, wonderful in all across the arc. What's the real challenge here for you? That's another one of those get down below the surface. Everyone understands. A lot of times with the questions, we don't want to stay superficial. We want to dig a little deeper. We're not digging the client. It's eliciting thinking on the part of the client. What do you want? Thinking of outcomes. Very nice in the opening moves. What would be an outcome for this coaching session? What would delight you? What would you like to accomplish? What would you like us to accomplish? So what do you want? At the end, you could talk about how close are we to what you want? Do you want something else? I how Number 5, how can I help? Now you want to be careful as a coach because you don't own the outcomes. The client owns the outcomes. But at the same time, depending on your stance, I think you want to have a firmer partnership. Does that make sense? Think co-create. Think we're co-creating the outcomes. Light co-create on the coach, heavier co-create on the client side, but we're co-creating. So how can I help? Probably use that at any stage, but probably middle game, more so in the middle game. I love number 6 because particularly for folks who have excessive whip limits, if you're saying yes or if you're saying yes to this, what are you saying no to? Woo! That what a wonderful that deserves the Hall of Fame for questions. And then at the end, what was most useful to you? The 7th question. Very often an end game question. And you could do it in the opening moves. What was most useful to you in the last coaching session, and how do we want to carry that forward into this agenda? So you can go back, but I like using this. I like getting an assessment from the client of how I did, right, in the end game, and talking about what can I do to improve. Again, I'm role modeling. Everyone with me. It's not about just the client. As a coach, everything we say is role modeling to the client. Next slide. So I've been harping a little bit. I'll just leave this out there. I don't know if people can see it, but and you can do screenshots of these things. Hopefully people were doing that along the way a little bit. Um, if you found something that's interesting, but this is just a list of effective listening skills from the Center of Creative Leadership. They have a wonderful 7-step process that I like to anchor on. But I'm not going to dive into this. This is just listening is important is really the point here. And next slide, please. Okay. Oh no, go back. Go back. Hide that slide for a second. Go back. Go backwards. Go back. Go back to the arc slide. So go back to slide 18, please. All right. Thank you. Whoever's doing this slide movement, I really appreciate what you're doing. So thank you for helping me. You have co-create. We're co-creating this workshop. So if there's any bad comments, then they all go to you, and then I get all the good comments. All right. So I'm kidding, everyone. I'm kidding. So now what I want to do is I want everyone to grab a piece of paper, a virtual piece of paper or a physical piece of paper, and then a writing instrument, a virtual writing instrument or a physical writing instrument. It can be a pen, a pencil, whatever you want. But I want you to grab a piece of paper, and I want you to draw or several, and I want you to draw an arc on it with like opening moves, middle game, and end game. So if you go forward a slide, I want everyone maybe to snapshot this, or at least think about the phases of the conversation. So we'll give you a second. So I want you to draw, not the words, but I want you to draw an arc on a piece of paper, and I want you to draw opening moves, middle game, and end game. And even before opening moves, oh, I haven't done this before in this workshop. There's a column before opening moves of what I would call coaching prep, mindset prep. Everyone with me? So pre-coaching conversation prep. So there's prep, opening moves, middle game, and end game. Ooh, I like this. So, and maybe snapshot this if you want, because now we're going to go into some scenarios, and I'm going to see how people do with the scenarios. Okay, so let's go forward to that slide it is
21 or
slide
22?
number, I can tell you what number it is. It is slide 22. There we go. Oh, fantastic. So everyone, I want to practice. So this is a scenario, and I want you on paper to game plan your coaching. Like you are the coach, and I want you to game plan your arc. And I'm going to give you some ideas to think about, but it's your arc. So if you're a scrum master, I'm going to promote you to coach or not, or demote you. If you're a leader, you're a coach. So whoever's here is this role. So you are an agile coach who is trying to spearhead an agile transformation. You continuously try to make the methods versus mindset point, but it doesn't land very well. Everyone with me? You're spearheading this. It's a small company, so don't get too overwhelmed. It's not huge. It's okay. The COO, the Chief Operating Officer of the organization, who supports the initiative, they're a key stakeholder, a key sponsor. They're funding it. Ask you to help them. One, explain what Agile is. This is for them. This is not for their all hands meeting. This is the COO is trying to grapple with. I fully support it, but I don't know what the hell it is. So please help me a little bit. So explain what Agile is, what it isn't, and what the value impact proposition is. Everyone with me? That's the ask on the part of the client in this case. So I want you to look at the arc for that and talk about things across the arc. Like, how would you enter it? What would be your mindset before you would enter it? Are you going to drop any biases? What would be your positive assumptions coming in? Then the opening moves. Are you going to ask some questions? What would be some of your questions? How would you open the conversation? What would that look like? If you switched context to another stance, another competency, maybe plan it. What would it be? You know what? I'm going to ask some questions, but I suspect I'm going to go into teaching mode. And what would the teaching mode look like? What would I teach them? Maybe I'm going to focus on one. And then how am I going to land the arc? Like, what's next? Rarely is a coaching conversation, does it stand alone? This is probably going to lead to several other conversations. Everyone with me? But this is the first one. So how are you going to orchestrate it? So you want to think about mindset. Everyone with me? You want to think about questions you're going to ask. You want to think about how you're going to show up. You want to think about dancing through the stances. You might even say something like, I want to avoid this stance. Are you with me, Tamloy? Like, for example, in this first session, don't do leading. You might note to self, don't do leading, or don't do advising. Remember those stances. I don't want to advise in the middle game. We can do that later if I need to. Right now, I'm just doing listening, and so I'm setting the tone for what is my focus. And I can adjust it, so it's a game plan. So given this I'm going to give you about 60 seconds to 90 seconds, and then we're going to debrief. What would your conversation look like? So jot down some notes. And there is no recipe here. Your conversation is yours. So there's no right or wrong. And what I'm going to try to do with Tanmoy's help is I'm going to try to get some comments from people who are attending the session as to what
Yes.
they would, what is their strategy for this conversation. Oh, by the way, this is the first time we've had this conversation. It's sort of implied in the scenario. So this is the first
Yes.
time as a coach that I've ever really sat down with the COO. So consider that in your arc. You have about a minute left, okay, everyone? Oh, and don't stay in one direction. Don't just be front loaded. Also think about the entire arc. Fill in some ideas, a few things across the arc. The other thing at the end, what would you like to have? What would you like to accomplish at the end? Now you have to listen to the client. It's their agenda, but I think you should have a coaching. What would be my goals? And I mirror that. I merge that with the clients.
And there
Tim,
is no right or wrong, right, Bob? There is no right or wrong. It's just your,
no,
just be
there's no
playful. Yeah.
no. What? Well, not just be playful. What I find is we can learn from these different conversation strategies. There is no right or wrong, right? We're just triangulating. So anyone, you can let's put them in chat if you have them, and it can just be a
Yes.
snippet, or we can try to bring them up. So I'm looking at chat. So why don't we look at chat and see
Yes.
what the responses are? So everyone, I really want to encourage you to put something in there. We
Yes.
always
This
need
is a request.
someone needs to break the ice.
Yes.
We always need an icebreaker. Someone, please break
We
the
need
ice.
that courage. We need that courage from someone, and then others will follow. Yes, it's coming now.
So
Yes.
Cam, I like what's keeping them up at night. The only danger, Cam, and I'm not judging. I love the feedback. So we're just talking, right? We're learning together. That's what this exercise is about. The only problem I personally have with what's keeping them up at night, Cam, is a lot of consultants ask that question. So you may you may want to say, have they heard that like 1,000 times today? And if they heard it, and if you see that their eyes are starting to blink when you ask that question, you may want to switch to another question. I'm kidding a little bit and not. Anushli, what does Agile mean to the organization? So open-ended question discovery. Anushli is talk to me I'm reacting with discovery, right? Like what is the COO? What is their current understanding of Agile? So instead of me filling in things, do a discovery. This first session could almost be relationship building and some open Q&A and building empathy. What kind of future would you like to create for your organization? Another one, Tanmoy, I'm just reacting to that. What problems do you think Agile is here will help us improve upon? Or what is it, right? Why are we installing it? What's the why? What is your why? And explain what that. Here's what I think the why is. What do you think? And really start teasing apart not just their understanding of Agile, but their understanding of why we're doing it. An end game question. What I could have done differently. Cam, I love that. So you don't want to starve. You don't want to starve the end game, the end of the arc, and only worry about the beginning. What you want to remind yourself. I often do that just to remind myself. What's next? Um, how could I have done differently? Another thing, Cam, you can do is like what stance worked well for you and what stance didn't, right? Santhu, I love that. Are you afraid of Agile? Right? And I wouldn't hit why. Are you afraid of Agile? Why? Right? Are you afraid of Agile? Right? Or what bits of Agile trouble you? Or what bits of Agile disrupt your experience? And this could be with not just with the COO, Santu, that's a nice question because to me, Agile disrupts everyone's role. So why don't we try to explore that? What is your relationship with the Agile practice? I would buy that. Understand the background in terms of level of knowledge and why they see and why you're supporting it, right? I love that. I think there's some deep dives into the why here, Delisha. If you, I'm leaning into as we move from opening moves into middle game, I would want more discovery of their level of understanding, their level of why, their level of problem solving, their level of fear, etc. Everyone with me? We're trying to build empathy. That would then serve the bridge for the next coaching conversation. So what we're kind of doing is deferring, explain what Agile is, what it isn't, and what is the value and impact proposition. We may be deferring that to the second coaching conversation, and right now we're just discovering where are they. Does that resonate with everyone? Meet them where they are. What monkeys are you starving? Okay, Kim. I want you to tell me. I have a question for you. Tell me how that works for you when in your coaching conversations. All right. I'm just kidding. Oh, Ploy. Why are you engaging? Oh man, Ploy has a wonderful question there. Everyone with me, like, why are you engaged? Or so there's this notion of I don't like it when I'm assigned to coach someone. There's a notion in the agile coaching community of push versus pull. If I push coaching to to Tanmoy, I'm being prescriptive. If he requests it, he's pulling it. It's a much better situation if he pulls versus me pushing. So why are you engaging me as the coach is opening up that invitation to understand the pull. I love that ploy, right? I love that. And pull creates accountability. Absolutely. All right, everyone, let's go. I want to try this again with another scenario. If this is going well, I want to do a time check. I think we're
Yeah,
okay with it.
you have like 15 to 19
Yeah.
minutes almost.
So let's go to the next one. So slide 23, please.
Yes.
So this is a different scenario. Oh, and everyone remember there can be multiple conversations. So I don't know if always a coaching scenario has one like a one-to-one relationship. I'm not saying this one generates that, but very often to me a scenario might say, you know what, uh, as an outside coach, I have an opportunity to coach the team. I have an opportunity to coach the scrum master, and I might have an opportunity to coach a leader. Does that resonate with everyone? So a scenario that one scenario might generate three coaching conversations, and or it might just generate one. So it depends on your strategy. So if you see multiple coaching conversations coming out of a scenario, then just do double arcs, and you can play and you can be playful with, oh, I might do this, and then I might have this conversation, and then see what happens from those. So you are a scrum master coach and have noticed a strong pattern where team managers are swooping in they swoop into the respective teams. They're like vultures. No, I'm just kidding. They're like they're big birds, and each time and the team encounters a problem, and they keep taking the problem solving from the team. So the leaders are swooping in, and their hearts are in the right place. That's assume positive intent. They're trying to help, but what's happening is it's undermining the ownership, the accountability, the morale of the team because they're always coming in. There's one particular manager. We're going to call him Bob just for fun. Bob Galen, very senior, almost too senior, experienced and respected. No, that's not Bob Galen. Simply isn't responding to your coaching. So you've had three coaching conversations with Bob Galen in this scenario. This is your fourth conversation. Everyone with me? This is the fourth arc, and let's populate your arc. What are some conversation opportunities, questions, stances? In the last chat, I didn't see a lot of people talking about the stance that they were going to take. In this next round, I want to hear some people's ideas of, I'm going to enter with this stance and I might switch to this stance, but I'd like to close with this stance. So let's think about stances this time. Questions are good, but stances as well. So take a minute or two. I,
Bob, this
I,
is beautiful.
oh, thank you, Tim.
And this is going so well with the coaching clinic. In the coaching clinic, the questions we got, and your session is kind of answering them and revalidating those answers.
Very, very cool. Very cool. Hey, everyone! I have a camera. I don't, but I'm watching everyone. So those people who are sitting there and eating something and they're not filling out their arcs, I can see you. So I want everyone to fill out your arcs, right? I'm being serious. Even if so, just be playful with it. Fill out your arcs and then be ready to sort of share some of the ideas from your arcs in the chat.
Yes. And it would be great to see some cameras on. Then we can really have the face-to-face conversation, even remotely.
So I'm glad the technology has sort of sorted itself out, Tamar. We had a rocky beginning, I think. So, but I think the
Yeah,
air,
the technology was right for the moment.
yeah, it's smooth. It's smoothed its way out. All right, everyone, start putting some ideas in the chat, please. Again, this is a new arc, and just any feedback at all. Opening moves, middle game, end game, questions, stances, mindset. Like I need to enter this with a mindset. I'll give you a hint. For me, I would need to, since this is my fourth conversation, I would remind myself in the prep to enter with a non-biased, non-frustrated mindset, to meet them with renewed just curiosity and respect, because I'm getting a little tired of having this conversation, and that might seep into my coaching. So I would remind myself to come in with a recharged battery, with a new mind. Ah, Anushle, what do you know about agile coaching? Exactly, right? Or what do you not know? Or are you curious? So you can change some of these questions. A beautiful question. Anyone else? Any other feedback on this arc? Anushle, thank you for having the courage to break the ice. You rock. Come on, I want some other and Tanwa, you can feel free to type some things in there. I'm desperately
I'm just,
seeking.
I'm just waiting for others. I don't want to, just add to that. It's more about we just as I said. There is no right or wrong. This is be playful. Yeah, yeah. This is playful. Yeah,
Now, while I'm
it's
waiting for
great.
people, I would
Yes.
probably I would probably enter this in professional coaching, but I'm not going to ask a lot of questions, everyone. I would be asking questions around why are we here again? We've had this conversation 3 times. So asking questions, but they would be more so related to previous coaching. The other thing I would probably do in my plan is I would probably lean into advisory in the middle game, if that makes sense, or leader slash advisory, because I would be trying to remind myself that I need to have a hard conversation here. Does that make sense to everyone? Right?
Hmm.
It's not improving, and I think over the course of these coaching conversations, I may need to increase the radical candor or the clarity, and I would try to give myself permission to do that. Do it respectfully, but in service of the client. Now, the other thing I would go back to is: did we agree in our agenda, did this leader, did is it their agenda to stop swooping? Everyone with me? I'm assuming that we had an agenda agreement to stop swooping, but we're just not taking action. So we could go back and check the agenda. I was just buying time. So what do we got? According to
That's
you, what are your expected roles and responsibilities from both of us? I love that. That would probably be not in the fourth conversation, probably earlier on, but a beautiful question. What made you show up for the for the session? If you had a choice to not show up, what would that reason be? Initially, that's a playful question. I like that. I might use it carefully, but I love the nature of that. Have someone in the team ask the manager this: what do you observe is happening with the team? Um, Another Victor, beautiful question. I'm going to come in. You've inspired me. It's a little bit of a difference, but it's what makes you feel. What makes you Why do you continue to swoop into the team? And I might even go into: is it a lack of trust? Is it a lack of skill on the part of the team? Is it just your style? I'm really curious as to what is the driver here. Now, maybe we should have uncovered that earlier, but I would want to, with respect, understand what why are you doing it, right? What are you seeing? And in this case, depending on what I heard, I might do some coaching of the team. Does that make sense to everyone? Like, the reason this leader may be coming in is the team lacks transparency. So the team isn't being transparent enough. So now what I have a balanced 2 coaching conversations that I may have to do. Stance: appreciate the support to given to any junior members while highlighting it affects boosting confidence in them and stand for themselves. Okay, an appreciation stance. Mid game: what would the team be like if you are not there? Oh, ploy. I like that. Or another variation of that. When was the last time you took a 2 or 3 week vacation? I'm just kidding, ploy. Right? But do you feel like you can take a vacation and things don't crumble? So, right, I'm just kidding around. Any others? One of the things here is, to me, this is probably going to have a stance. I think you need to be more nimble and maybe more critical, if you will, in your stances in this case. I would not want to just ask questions here. I would be starting to move from pure professional coaching and at least into mentoring or teaching, or more hard consulting, hard conversation, crucial conversation consulting, because this is not improving. But I don't know necessarily what exactly that arc would be. My outcome would be to reduce the swoops. Everyone with me? Somehow, maybe not take it to zero, but to reduce the swooping. Let's go. Let's have fun. Let's do one other one. Uh, if you could advance, let's see which slide. I only have two more scenarios. Let's do the next one. Let's do the next one, please. Is there an I in team? This is okay. Here we go. You're the scrum master of a team who has recently adopted Scrum. One team member, the team lead, we'll call them Bob. This one is Bob Galen. Bob is a bit of a curmudgeon. He's a bit of a prickly pear. He's not the most agreeable person on the planet. Oh, Bob has a big ego because Bob's been around. Bob knows everything. I've been with the company for 35 years. So Bob is really struggling to work within the dynamics of a cross-functional team. Because you know what? I know how to do everything, and no one else knows how to do it right. So it's really the Bob Galen show. Uh, because I'm sort of negative and belligerent. I don't like working with others. I'm not a bad person, but I'm a lone ranger. I like working by myself and contributing, and I'm not really bringing the team along with me. And it's really it's destroying the fabric and the collaboration of the team. But that's not purely my intention. It's just because of my knowledge, and I'm a little bit of change averse. Another team member has pulled you aside. This is the scrum master, literally begging you to do something. So people are starting to resign. People are crying. People are it's a miserable environment for anyone but Bob. And you've observed this as the scrum master as well. The product owner sort of aligns a little bit with Bob because Bob knows so much. But the product owner sees the behavior and is really worried about the morale of the team as well. So that's the scenario, and you're the scrum master. So I want some coaching arcs. So arc or arcs, and who would you be coaching? What are the possibilities? And think opening moves, middle game, end game. Think stances. I also want you to think mindset. I really want you to think about, how am I showing up? How do I need to show up? What do I need to do to make sure I don't trigger? Like possible triggers. Everyone with me? We all have possible triggers. I'm putting them in there not to trigger myself, but to be to be wary of being triggered. So it would be warning myself to be sharp on my presence. All right, let me shut up. Fill out those arcs for a minute and a half.
And Bob, we have 7 more minutes.
All right, we'll wrap this up quick. This is the last one.
No, this is a great opportunity. I think everyone should take this opportunity to write these questions, right? To frame these questions at least.
One of the meta discussions while people are writing, Tanway, is, and I in my book, I try to make the point of, I think coaches need to plan. So there are coaches who coach they schedule it so there's like 60-minute coaching sessions back to back to back, and they have
No, 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 no.
and they don't give themselves time to prepare
Exactly.
for,
Exactly.
and they don't give themselves time to post process what happened
Exactly.
for themselves. and
Exactly.
and it's, so to me, planning, this is sort of opening the door for planning,
Yes. So,
and really,
Bob, with your permission, I will use a metaphor from my heart
go
from a
ahead.
monk, that you are using a knife to cut the potato, and then you are not washing the knife, then using the knife to cut meat.
Ex-
The fragrance from everything will be mixed up. So we need to have that pause to reflect and journal previous session and then start the next session. Yes, coaching
Absolutely.
is not something which you can do back to back. Yes, totally agree.
Absolutely. All right, so I hear from Mahesh. In the spirit of time, everyone, I'm just going to read a few and keep them coming. But this is the last scenario, and then I'm just going to end the workshop. But I'm incredibly blessed with the feedback we have had. So it will harm the openness and respect within the team. Talking Mahesh, I love the talking talking about the impact to the team. So very when we're independent of stance, I hope all of you know this. This is a feedback session as well. Is talking about the behavior. Don't personalize the behavior. So it's don't personalize it to Bob, the team lead. It's talk about Bob's behavior and talk about the impact it has to the team and to the business. That's an important distinction. Don't make it a personal attack. And so I love what you were saying there. What is it that you may not be knowing yet? I love that. I mean, are you aware of the impact of the team? What in fact, initially, it's if we've had this conversation multiple times, a nice open-ended question is how do you think things are going? Or actually to build their empathy, how do you think your team members think things are going right now? So you're putting Bob, you're actually having Bob be more empathetic and reflective. Mindset, be open to listen. Sonali, you nailed it. Sonali, a little drop the mic moment there. Go ahead, drop that mic. Be listen to the team lead's viewpoint. I so if we haven't done that before, the first coaching session should be deeply listening to what's
Yes.
going on in the team lead. Everyone with me, really deeply listening. What's their viewpoint? Not even if you disagree with it. Don't. That's not. You're not there to evaluate it. You're there to understand. To understand how can I connect to them. What's the why behind it for them? So I love that mindset. That was one of the first mindset comments. Stance, Delisha, coaching as an opening question. How is it going with the team? Exactly, you nailed it. Cam, bit of a kid, but for the team arc, have a group. Bob said the asshole survival guide. I, I, yes, I have, Cam. But I love that. And maybe you could bring that book with you, Cam. I'm just kidding. So and hand out copies of it. Identify where the team lead is coming from. What is the delivery pressure they're facing? I would actually so the delivery pressure. So it's talking about how they're interacting to the team, but also how is their leader? Everyone with me? How are they being messaged from their leader? The problem here may not be the team lead. Everyone. The problem here may be whoever they're reporting to. They may be getting mixed messages in a connection. What if you discovered that in a coaching conversation? Now you have two coaching paths. Everyone with me? The team lead is still struggling and is going to struggle and needs coaching, but who you also need to coach their leader. Does everyone see what I'm saying? So that one coaching arc could have evolved, or coaching session now has two paths that we have to follow. Uh, please share and please share. Okay, cool. I think we are going to stick a fork in it. If we could go, there is a last slide, everyone. It is slide number 26.
26.
There you go. This is the thank you. So everyone, it is to every one of the organizers. It's just been a pleasure to come. I want to thank you. It's a lot of hard work to put these events on. I know. So I'm thankful for the events. I'm thankful for all of the attendees. I'm thankful for you listening. I'm thankful for everyone who came and everyone who stayed to the end. And just there's links and things in the slides. I'll make sure I share the slides with the organizers, and you can follow up with links to some of the resources I gave you. And that's it for me. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here today.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you so much. It was great session. And requesting all the participants to use the Menti link. The Menti link is in the chat. Please use the Menti link to give your feedback, because feedback is so important for us in Agile. It's all about feedback loops. Yeah, so it would be great to have your feedback using the Menti link.
So Tanway, I think I'm gonna just go. Okay, you guys have a
Yep.
wonderful gathering. All right, and it was just a joy to hang out with you. I'm
Thanks a lot, Bob.
all
Thanks a
right.
lot.
Take
It was
take good
really
care,
a pleasure to hear from you. Thanks a lot.
bye
Awesome.
bye.